All right, we are live. Happy Monday, everybody. It's your old buddy, the Dreamer. For anybody who's watching this on the replay or catching the world premiere of this awesome interview we're about to have, my name is the Dreamer. This is my show, Hanging with the Dreamer. This is my home away from home, my little spot in the universe, Dreamland Studios. Welcome to the show, everybody. Now, hanging back in the green room, I have a bona fide awesome musician, an awesome songwriter, awesome vocalist, somebody who has a lot of heart, a lot of soul, and puts a lot of passion and creativity into what he writes and what he does. His name is Wes Grissom. He serves our country. To me, he's a hero. So let's all give a big Dreamer welcome and leave to Wes Grissom. How you doing, Wes? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. I'm doing good. How are you today?
Doing great. Doing great. Thank you for being on Hanging with the Dreamer. This is my little spot in the universe, Dreamland Studios. Well, let's jump right into it. I made a video for you to try and just kind of let people know exactly who Wes Grissom is and exactly Wes Grissom, is all about. What would you like to say to everybody in the world, Mr. Grissom?
Well, first and foremost, thank you to everyone who supported us this far. Any band project, local act, whatever you want to, whatever a band would label themselves as, nobody would get to where they are without the support of those who come to see them and, participate with them. So definitely a huge thank you, number one, first and foremost. Secondly, I hope that, as we go further down the road that, others share, our music with not only their friends, but their family as well. And, continue just, to, not only to support us, but whether it be physically but emotionally as well, and just know that it's more than an honor, to have people there, for us.
Awesome. So am I pronouncing your last name right, Grissom?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. I don't want to get your name wrong. Um, so how long have you been playing guitar, Mr. Wes Grissom?
Technically, I started in 2003 in January, when I got my first guitar. So that's what, eight, almost 19 years now. But realistically, in that entire period, I probably played a grand total of maybe about 10 years, roughly.
What's your most precious musical moment?
Mm, Probably when I got to play for the guitar tech of Smash Mouth. Um, it was back in 2007, and this is back when I was in the Marine Corps, and I was on duty at my squadron, and there was a bunch of construction and everything going in the hangar, and it was on a weekend. And the officer with me was like, hey, go, see what those guys are doing, make sure they're not messing with anything. It was like, good to go. So I was talking with some people, and there's some bank corporation from New York that was having a banquet, and they were going to have live music and whatnot, and they had a cover band, and then they were going to have Smash Mouth play. And I got to talking to a couple of the guys, and they introduced me to him, the bass player, and the keyboard player. And the guitar tech was like, well, hey, you said you're a guitar player. I was like, yeah, but I'm not very good. He's like, why don't you go back and see if you can get your guitar and come and like jam with me for a little bit. And I was like, okay. So the officer on duty let me go get my one guitar that I had, and I came back and I played guitar for him, and he's like, would you like to play a cover song with us on stage tonight? And I was like, are you kidding me? He's like, no, like this is serious. And of course I was obliged. But the tour, I can't remember who the guy was who was the tour manager, but he shot it down like immediately. Um, but just the fact that I got to play for their guitar tech at the time was definitely, and hear from him, to me, I thought I was just terrible, but there was something that I guess that he saw, and just the fact though that I got to play for him through Smash Mouth's live rig, I thought that was pretty
Wow.
awesome.
Wow. Wow. Playing through a pro rig.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, I'm glad you had that experience. That's a real good taste of what it's like to be a pro musician and to actually be able to play through Smash Mouth's rig.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's pretty phenomenal. So, what exactly are your plans? Like, what do you want to do with your musical vision? What are you hoping to achieve with your musical vision in the next year or so? What's your year plan right now?
Within the next year, we will be releasing the second studio record for this band. It's already in the works right now. I'm working with Paul Wanke, who is a former drummer for Trivium, and he has his own projects, Smells Like Nirvana, Dead Original, and Bedlam. And him and his friend Joey, who is a guitar player in Dead Original, and I think he was in Bedlam as well. They're going to do the drums. Paul's doing the drums and the producing, the mixing and mastering and all that stuff, and Joey's gonna lay down rhythm guitars. So that way, on this record, Vice, the last record, there'll be an actual second guitar player, you know, doing that portion. And that way I can
Yeah.
not only just focus on my parts, but also my leads and everything like that. Um, I've reached out to a couple of bass players, so I'm just waiting on feedback for that to see who's gonna, record the bass for the new album. Otherwise, just waiting to get my stuff back here pretty soon, so that way I can start practicing again and start ramping up for playing shows here in Central and Southern California. Um, that pretty much would be it. I've submitted for a couple of local festivals, so hopefully I can be able to participate in those, and then maybe towards the middle of next year, take a little time off and tour Southern California, Southern Arizona, and go spend a little time with my kids in New Mexico and do a couple shows around there, and then do a couple of shows on the way back when I come back to work.
Mm, go for it. That's all I could say is go for it.
Hmm.
We all only have one life, and we all gotta make the best choices that we can make while we have the chance to make them. I'm inspired by your musical vision. Let me tell you why. Because I saw from the very beginning that you have a true heart and you have a true soul towards helping others, towards your music, towards those you love, towards the music that you love, towards those you love who make the music that you love. And that's very, very obvious. Launch you off once more people get to know you, once your name gets around more, you know, and I hope that my show will be able to help you do that. So let's talk about guitars a little bit. Let's talk about your favorite PRS Tremontis. What about the PRS SE Tremontis did you love so much?
Honestly, the way that the way that they sound when I play, I've sat and played, um, because I still have my Ibanez SC720 FM, and it's an amazing guitar. Um, but it still resonates, but it doesn't produce the sound the way that the Tremonti SE does for me, especially with the Tremonti signature pickups in it. Um, it's just the overall outcome of the tone, I would say. Um, there's not really any lack of it. It pushes right through, no matter if I'm playing a single string, whether it's a low string, a high string, a combination of strings, or if I'm actually playing chords, or even when I'm finger picking, like with my vintage tobacco cherry sunburst. That one has a growly low end, more muted tone almost when you're just playing it by itself. Whereas um, my cherry model is definitely a mid range, a strong mid range tone would sound. And then the platinum model, or even when I used to have my black gloss black signature model, because both of those are roughly from the same time period. Um, they are more on the high end, like the treble end of the spectrum. Um, and even when, with that one being all the way down in drop B, it still cuts through so nicely. And
Mm.
I've played a couple of the guitars in the same spectrum, or even down in the same tuning, like the Jim Root Telecaster from Fender. A couple of Jacksons that some friends of mine had that were like tuned way down to like drop A, Dean ESP, and none of them, like, they were all great guitars, but the sustainment and the what's the proper word? The overall just carry through of the sound. For me, it resonates best with the Tremontis, even just PRS in general.
Well, I remember the very first time that I heard PRS guitars. And the very first time I laid my eyes on a custom 24. And I gotta tell you that on a wall full of ESPs and Gibsons, there was this one PRS custom 24, excuse me, red cherry sunburst with a hint of yellow, and it was a. I thought it was a tiger's eye top. It was a 4A flame top, USA model. And this one guitar was a USA model. This one guitar stood out from the wall of 50 guitars I was looking at. Was this one guitar just stood out? And I remember my eyes went right to it when I walked in the guitar store. And I knew the owner, Scott Jennings, at the time. The name of the guitar store is Route 66 Guitars. He was in Pasadena for a while. They moved to Hollywood, but or West Hollywood. And I remember meeting him and say, "Hey, yeah, my name's Will. I play. And can you tell me about that guitar?" I was just absolutely in awe. And Mr. Jennings, Scott Jennings, he broke down the history of Paul Reed Smith, and he broke down the history of the Custom 24 flame top, and I was just like, it was the only one. It was the only PRS on the wall. And here you have these beautiful Gunsons and ESPs and Rickenbackers. I mean, it was a vintage guitar store, and all vintage gear. Vox, Fender, Marshall, and Epiphone, and but this one guitar stood out. I couldn't believe it. I just absolutely couldn't believe it. And then when I did some research on Paul Reed Smith guitars and I saw who is playing them, I was just like, okay, it made sense. It made sense. But I asked him, I said, "Scott, you have this killer PRS Custom 24 USA, beautiful, beautiful guitar sitting here. Why do you only have one of them?" He said, "That's all I could get." And I'm like, "Oh, dude." Yeah, I was blown away. I was blown away. Now, I was also checking out the ESP George Lynch series, earlier version, but this one PRS, so ever since that moment, here I'm sitting here talking about it, like 35 years later. That's how impressed I was. That's how impressive, this guitar was to me. It was like a diamond, it was like a shiny diamond, in the middle of a bunch of real beautiful looking sapphires. It's like a shiny diamond just gleaming. The birds were even gleaming. It was crazy.
Right.
It was amazing. It was amazing. It was amazing. So yeah, when you had mentioned to me, and I saw that you play the PRS Tremonti SEs, I wanted to ask you, what's the feel like? What's the feel like on the PRS Tremonti SEs compared to other guitars you play?
Definitely, the most notable at first is the definitely the neck. Um, the the neck of my Platinum SE it's definitely a fat wide neck. I mean it is thick. Um, the better one is my regular cherry model. It's more of a it's not a thin neck, it's not wide, it's like right in the middle. Um, my cherry sunburst is definitely a wide thin. So it's what's the it's probably about two up at its thickest point is probably about maybe 2 to 2.25 inches across from top to bottom, but the thickness on the back is definitely a thin neck feel. Um, but I think it's mainly like because my cherry model is my go-to. Um, I think it's just the how that neck was designed. It was just the ease of play is it's like just holding a room temperature stick of butter in your hand and just squeezing it and it just like gooing all out in between your fingers and everything. that's what it would feel like. You know, it's so easy to go across and up and down the neck, and with, I'm not going to say little to no effort, depending on your skill level of playability, but yeah, that guitar on its own, pretty similar to like the custom 24s, that are coming out right now. It's pretty much along that lines.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. So what sounds great. So if you had a chance to make any suggestions to the Paul Reed Smith, to the PRS crew, what would be your thoughts on doing any kind of little critiques or improvements to the PRS line that you are very familiar with?
Probably the only one would be the input jack. The little bitty nut in the washer that's on it, um, they come undone very, very easily after, plugging in and taking your cable out and just doing it over and over again. They come undone pretty easily. So what I did, I mean, obviously, just a quick, at home fix. I undid the screws that hold it in and pulled it off, and took the nut and the washers off, and coated it with some JB Weld, some red JB Weld epoxy. Put the nuts or the washers back on. Put the nut back on, and then right before I cinched it down, I put just a little bit in between the nut and the washers, and then cinched it in place, and just let it cure before I screwed it back in.
Hmm.
Um, the toggle switch, on my sunburst, that one comes undone like a little bit here and there, so I pretty much kind of had to do the same thing,
Hmm.
for that screw that holds it in on the outside.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, just the input jack. I know that they're usually like with, because I played a 2021 Tremonti SE factory, everything, when I was at Guitar Center, and they've absolutely improved the pickups on them. I think they're closer to the 8505s or 8515s. Um, like those have definitely come a long way. The the body isn't necessarily as thin, so it's got a little bit more weight to it, and whatever mechanics that they've put into it, it's made it to where it just, when you're sitting and playing, or I'm pretty sure if I were to stand and play with it, it would sit just the same. And yeah, they've absolutely, as I know Paul's always constantly wanting the guys at the factory, to kind of slightly reinvent the wheel to make it a better product every single year, and they absolutely are doing that. But yeah, I would definitely say it'd be the input jack.
Have you ever had a chance to play the PRS Neil Sean guitar?
I played a Neil Sean back in 2000, I think it was 2017 or 2018. The Guitar Center in Albuquerque got one in, and I definitely would, if I had had the cash at the time, I wanted to take it home. And I
Mhm.
mean, maybe out of nostalgia, I probably would have put Tremonti pickups in it. Um, but it felt very similar to my Platinum model, or even similar, like almost similar to my Black Signature model that I used to have. It's almost that SC 250 feel. I think it's more along the lines though for an SC 245. But yeah, it was an absolute fantastic guitar, especially for the price too. It wasn't that expensive, but it was, yeah. I think, yeah, if I would have had the money, and I probably would have taken that one home.
But was it an or CE model?
So as far as I know, a lot of the single cuts are modeled after like the Tremonti signature model from '01 to like '04, '05 was modeled after the SC250. Um, I want to say the size of the body for the Zach Myers is modeled after the SC245. Um, so it's kind of along the lines of the similar specs, but then they do all the extras uh, in the making process and everything to make it into its own dimensions and whatnot. Yeah.
Well, I gotta tell you that Neil Sean model. I
Hmm.
saw the one that Paul Reed Smith premiered at the NAMM show. I think like in 2018 or 2019. That was a beast. I was just
Hmm.
like thinking to myself, man, that's priced right out of my wallet.
Hmm.
I'm like, and I really, 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 really wanted that guitar. That was just, I knew the feel was going to be impeccable. I knew that it was going to be diamond status instrument, and it just, the flame just pops. The
Hmm. Oh yeah.
flame just boom right in your face. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Now I notice with the Mark Tremonti SC guitars, I noticed that they look like they're pretty solid.
Yeah. The tobacco cherry sunburst that I have is definitely the heaviest guitar that I have. I think the body at least about almost an inch and three quarter to almost 2 inches thick. It is absolutely solid. If you didn't look at the back of the guitar, you would think that it is a one piece,
Uh,
instead of a two piece. But yeah, they're definitely. I mean, there's times where like I've accidentally like where my cherry model has like tipped over and whatnot, or a couple of the nicks that I got on my platinum model, from it just sliding down. Um, but you pick it up and it still sounds exactly the same.
mm. Someday I'll have one. They right now, well, I have a website. I could tell you the guitars that I play now, but I'll tell you that when we're done if you have time. But the pretty amazing. The so you're in the military.
Yes.
What have you learned in the military that has helped prepare you for life that you are able to use on your musical journey that you're pursuing?
Well, definitely. In regards to travel, especially, for those who are married with kids or just married, in general in a relationship, you gotta have patience. You have to make sure that, if you're playing locally, that's one thing, but if you're wanting to like, we'll say tour abroad or, go on the road, for X number of period at a time, you've got to have patience, and you got to be consensus with one another, you and your partner. Um, a lot of people. have in the military, gone on deployment and come back and things, of course they're not going to be the same, especially with kids, because you weren't there for all that time. You may have kept in contact with them and whatnot, but they're used to mom being around. Or if
Yeah.
the female is the service member, she's the one that's out and about, and they were always around dad, so they're used to just that one person, taking care of everything and having, we'll say, the final say, um but there's got to be that communication there. And of course there's going to be times where in the military it's not always guaranteed, but as a musician touring, it is. Obviously you've got to make time, for sound check and warm ups and things like that, and all the things you need to do to prepare for your gig, to have the best gig possible every single time. But when all of that's done, obviously, or even if something, legit happens in the meantime, family comes first. Um, and that also goes with, it being, with you and your job. Um, because 9 times out of 10, most touring musicians have a regular job that they go to, and they tour, and like go out of town and whatnot to play gigs,
Yeah.
when they can, and it's always on, going to be on your own dime, so
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
another thing that people don't really foresee or prepare for. Um, no.
Well, you always got to watch the money, that's for sure. And, it, I've had this talk with other pro touring um, artists that I've had the pleasure of meeting and spending time with. And it always comes back down to, I hear the way some of my other guests have prepared to go on tour. And I hear the way that, you know, the tone in their voice. I get it. Because this whole thing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that's perfectly fine. But from what I've seen, this whole thing in production and putting on the best possible production as possible, it's all a slow crawl.
Hmm.
It's it's all a slow crawl, and you feel like it's just like, come on already. But and you feel like you're always crawling up that mountain
Hmm.
when it comes,
Absolutely.
you know, and when it comes to production and performance and what have you. And just gotta stick with it, do it because you love it, and you know, stay the course. When it has to go even slower, so be it. But stay consistent, stay constant, and stay the course. And that's how Mark Tremonti got to where he's at.
Yep.
That's how, you know. And by the way, before I say anything else, really, by the way, who are your musical influences? Like, who who are the top five artists that you admire the most musically?
Mm. I could definitely throw my number one band of all time will always be Alter Bridge, and it's pretty awesome that I can branch that one band off into different categories. Guitar, well, it's Mark; vocals, it's Miles. Um, just the overall sound and production that they put on as a whole is absolutely phenomenal. If I think that if they hadn't released even the
Hmm.
first record as Alter Bridge, that I probably wouldn't be playing guitar today. So I absolutely owe that to them. Four other bands, and it's definitely changed over the last 3 years. I would absolutely still say Hammerfall and Nightwish as two top contenders. Nowadays, probably Five Finger Death Punch.
Hmm.
Um, I
Yeah.
didn't really used to be a fan of theirs back in the day, but then I actually started listening and in depth more and more when I started further progressing as a guitar player, and listening to the way that Zoltan and Jason were just progressing all the songs, and then the caliber of the slower type of songs like Remember Everything and Mine, and things like that. And even my favorite song from them of all time, Coming Down, which that song has gotten me through so much in life. I definitely owe it to them as well. And if I had to put a solidified fifth, probably would be mm, probably would be Bon Jovi.
Awesome. Awesome. Those are all great ones. Especially Nightwish. I'm a
Hmm.
big I've been a Nightwish fan for probably about 12 years, and they're good.
Oh,
They're very
absolutely.
very very good. Um, so what do you think can make? What do you think are the things you would meet somebody who is just starting out, who got their first guitar, maybe a Squire Strat, or like me, an Aria Pro, um, Explorer, Aria Pro Star. That was my first guitar um, years and years ago. What would be the best advice that you could give somebody who's just starting out?
Besides, practicing, definitely re-listen to the bands and the musicians that made you want to pick up the guitar in the first place, and listen to take just one band and listen to their entire discography if you haven't already, or if you have, to listen to it again, and have the guitar in your hands. um and you know it will, while trying to play along with it, even if you haven't, even if you can barely strum like maybe two or three chords,
Yeah.
just sit there and just listen to the progression, or um put on, as you progress, put on some backing tracks, whether it's blues or jazz or swing, or 70s soft rock. Put on something completely different than the genre that you're attracted to the most, and see how you can intertwine the two. um, One thing I definitely tell my students is, when you're sitting and when you're just doing your warm-ups, I teach them the basic, like three basic warm-ups: the down pick, um, the uh, three string part of the pentatonic, so like the A, D, and G strings. Ju- um, for those that are younger and smaller, use the smaller frets. I'd have some of my students use the 12th and 14th fret on the ADG string and just go 1 2 1 2 1 2 all the way up. And when they can get that, then come back down. Just sit and don't be afraid to play over and over and over again with those things to get comfortable to syncing both of your hands, both your left and your right. And then I have them sit there and do 4 notes on one string and progress all the way up from one fret to the next until they hit a certain point, and then progress back down using all 4 fingers. And with someone just picking up the guitar, even I've seen a lot of really, really good progress. Just teaching them to get comfortable and learning how to sync both hands. A couple of my students asked me, why not, put on just like a metronome and play to the metronome. Well, it's good to play with a metronome. It absolutely is. But, a lot of people that I've come to know that started playing guitar and then stopped was because they were doing that method, just, sitting and playing to a metronome, quarter notes, eighth notes, half notes, stuff like that. And then when they started trying to get faster and faster immediately, they got so frustrated with it because they couldn't do it. They didn't take the time to slow it down and get your hands in sync. And that way you can start to play faster and faster. You don't even have to play super fast. You just play progressively faster than you were when you started. And it discourages some because they immediately feel that I'm not going to be able to do this. So definitely patience, and that's where that comes into play. It takes time, and that's one thing that I definitely stress to them is it's going to take time to build the calluses on your fingertips, and it's going to take time to progressively move from one technique to the next, especially when you're just starting out. So, if it's something you just want to end up just, sitting in your bedroom playing covers, play covers. But you got to learn how to make both hands, talk to each other.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the most important thing that I would definitely, tell not only tell somebody about, but show 'em.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, what would you say is the main influence behind your lyric content, and where do you think that song idea comes from when you're writing some lyrics or trying to come up with a riff, trying to put together something that could maybe later on down the road formulate into a real song? But what's your inspiration um, for lyric content specifically, and where do you think that inspiration comes from? Two-part question.
Definitely life. That's where the majority of the first album came from, and the album currently that I'm working on right now is life. Is things that I have personally experienced, and a way that I can convey that across that others can relate to. Um, a perfect song would be, Beneath the Surface. Um, there's so many people who have things that are just trapped on the inside that they don't know how to vocalize or non verbally express. and so those all that, the anger, hate, distrust, it all just builds and builds and builds,
Hmm.
and nobody else sees it though, or and maybe with some people they don't see it until it's too late. Same thing with On the Edge. That one uh, is somebody questioning, themselves, and where they belong. And those are things that I've definitely dealt with in life as well. Um, but yeah, as far as where it where it pulls from for a guitar riff, I just sit and play. Whenever I'm warming up after playing for a little bit, to get my hands in sync and whatnot, and start getting my forearm burning, or um, get my left hand to not feel as stiff. First thing I'll do is I'll put on YouTube, and whatever mix of songs just shows up, I'll hit it and just play along to a certain number of songs for at least an hour to 2 hours. Um, Whether it be Tremonti, Five Finger, Fire from the Gods. I've started kind of diving into Gemini Syndrome, and uh, stuff from Jared Dines. Even, I'll put on somewhere in there. They'll probably be like Dokken, or Quiet Riot. Some of the older '80s hair metal, and I'll just sit there and I'll play along with it and maybe improvise, just to um, just to get the feel, just to get all the feels going. Um, and then when it comes to writing, after all of that, I will just turn on the if I'm actually sitting down writing, I'll turn on my recording DAW, and I'll have something playing in my ear and have it recording while, so it's recording me and not what I'm hearing. So
Yeah.
then I'll just start, improvising, and I'll put on like something like a metalcore or deathcore backing track, a regular metal or hard rock backing track, or if I feel that there's a way that I play something differently, listening to, another band's song, I'll have it recording while I'm doing that. And then I'll go back and I'll listen to that to see where the progression was coming from me, instead of me trying to play the song the way that it's meant to be. Um, but I'm just, doing my warm ups, or if I'm, doing the same thing but with my finger picking, if something just comes right out, I will take my phone and um, hit the lock button, because it'll probably already be locked anyway, and flip over to the camera, to the video, and prop up my phone and just play. And then I'll go back and listen to it like a week later, a month later, something, and see if it was something worth, you know, chasing after, or you know, take it and then play something else while listening to that, and not trying to read, unless it's something that I feel is actually going to really be, catchy, and is actually going to be, something absolutely worth chasing down right then and there. Yeah, I'll play something completely different, but while listening to that idea. Yeah, 9 times out of 10, it's usually just using my phone and capturing a quick moment. That way I don't lose it.
Outstanding. Outstanding. There are many ways. I've been I've been told there are many ways to write, many ways to record, but I have found that having your DAW and oh, by the way, what is your digital audio workstation of choice, Wes?
Right now it's Pro Tools first. Yeah, when I got my Scarlett 2i2 interface, it came with the code for Pro Tools first and all the extra downloads for it and whatnot. So
Cool.
I'll use that, and from my interface, or technically from my guitar, it goes into my pedal board, which goes into the amp, and from the back of the amp, from the effects send, I go from there into the mower radar cab sim, and that is what shoots into my DAW, and that's what I record through.
Outstanding. So, what's your amp of choice?
The Behringer VT100 FXH. It's a 2-channel solid state amp, and it has what they call virtual tube. So with that, you can turn it on, and it gives a digital simulation of a tube amp, basically. And then the distortion channel has a overdrive 1 and overdrive 2 option, which I think OD1. I always use OD2 because it's more that heavier, muddier sound. OD1 is more like AC/DC and Stevie Ray Vaughan, that lighter bluesy dirty sound.
Now, you are a Morley endorsed artist, correct?
That is right.
So, how did that come about? How did your association with Morley come to happen, and what kind of Morley products do you use?
So I was talking with a friend of mine. I think they're in Brazil now. I think that's where they live now. But I noticed that they got endorsed by Morley, and I've been using the Morley Martrimony wah since 2000. I think 2014 is when I got it. I still have the same wah, and it still performs today as it did 7+ years ago now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I was talking with them, I was like, dude, that's really cool, and they're like, they're like, yeah, I've listened to your stuff, you should contact them. And they're like, here's the person to contact. So I was emailing this gentleman back and forth, and of course he's like, send me your EPK and all your information and everything. And they they make the after their research and whatnot, they made the decision. They're like, yeah, we would absolutely love to have you on board. And I honestly was like, fingers crossed and whatnot while waiting. But when they came back and said, yes, we would love to have you on, I was like, just jumping, like internally, just, jumping up and down. I was like, thank you. It was such an honor. But yeah, I use the Morley Martrimony, the first gen Morley Martrimony wah. I have their ABY switch. I've used it a couple of times when using 2 amplifiers live and layering the 2 amps over top of each other with 2 different cabinets. And I didn't have a lick of problems with it at all. It's the whole unit itself it feels like a tank. It is just solid. And whether it was I was using one to switch to a single and use that one as a clean tone, switch back to the dirty, use the other dirty and over that one. It's easy to use, and it's built to last.
Yeah, I love Morley products. I have a Morley George Lynch Dragon Law myself, and I love
Hell yeah.
Morley. They're and built like a tank, and really, even if you only hit the pedal itself, the expression pedal itself, like with half of your foot, even it still engages,
Mm-hmm.
and just it's just flawless. It's just
Yep.
flawless. I love Morley's great. Morley's a good one. They So how did your association with Dirtbag Clothing come about?
Same thing. They have an application on their website, and I've been looking around for someone to do merch through and whatnot, and we're designing some things. At least on my end. I'm trying to get some things put together to have an actual merch line. In the future, especially at shows. But yeah, same thing with them. Their application is on their website. They're all about the artist, and the gentleman who's the main like CEO more or less, for the company. I talked to him a few times um, about just like shooting ideas over and whatnot, and he absolutely happily responded promptly. I haven't I haven't had yeah, they've been wonderful. Whether you're a local band or just a big, we'll say big, well-known artist, they're all about the music community. And yeah, I same thing, submitted through their website, and when that they came back and they're like, yep, we would love to endorse you and whatnot. Yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal.
Congratulations. That's cool. That's very cool. So I wanted to save the best for last. Ancient Sins. When you were telling the story of Ancient Sins, more or less what the idea behind it, that name, Ancient Sins, is, I thought to myself, that is a real out of the box way of thinking that makes sense. A society that's doomed to repeat the same mistakes. And I thought to myself, that is so cool, man. Because it's true. It's
Hmm.
true. It's freaking true. As if you don't learn from your mistakes, you are doomed to repeat them.
You know,
And that really, I thought that was really clever. That that is that going to be something that you stick with? Is that going to be the focus of your musical vision?
um, in a sense, kinda. As far as the idea of not repeating things, um, you know, I definitely look forward more to the idea of, you know, obviously music is always going to be progressive. And it's always going to one genre, and it's shown itself time and time again in the last, we'll say, what, 40, 50 years.
Yeah,
Rock in general has, shifted in many, many different forms and many different directions. Um, and, whether, you had, if you went from, you know, we'll say, Queen to Poison, or even back in a gap in between, Queen to Kiss to Poison to Bon Jovi to into the sound of the 90s with Cream and Queens of the Stone Age and Pearl Jam, even Creed, leading up to Breaking Benjamin and Dope, which they were more on the black metal side for a little while. But Saliva, System of a Down, it all transpires from one period to the next to the next. And that's kind of, yeah, absolutely would be, something that I would want, this band to transpire as, not, you know, eventually not, having just, one or two albums that sound different and all the rest sound the same. I'd want each and every one to end up taking on its own shape and its own direction. And I think that's why I write the way that I do, because, it not only helps me grow as a guitar player, but also as a songwriter, so that way, there's, especially whenever I get stuck in a rut, I'll definitely turn on something different, or I'll just put it down and walk away. So that way that doesn't happen. But yeah, the when my friend posed the name and the meaning behind it, it definitely brought it to light, and it obviously, yeah, like you said, it made sense. But yeah, as far as definitely as far as not repeating the same things over and over and over, that's, yeah, that it definitely would be would be something that I would like to have happen, so that way, it's not like you put on one song from the first album, and let's say you put on a song, if eventually, we record a third record, and like, oh, that song sounds exactly like 6 years ago, or however long, prior to. Yeah, I wanted to have its own voice.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Where would you like to tell the world to go to support your musical vision and find out things Ancient Sins related?
The biggest one is Facebook. Is the Ancient Sins page on Facebook. I personally run it. Um, if anyone, like, with all the updates, especially in the writing process, that's where it's all going to be posted. And then there's the YouTube channel as well. Subscribe to Ancient Sins Official on YouTube. Otherwise, as far as just listening to music in general, wherever, someone listens to music, it'll be there. Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Amazon. I think there's even the other streaming services like KBox and Deezer and Tidal. It's everywhere. So yeah, wherever you listen to music, and then on social media, yeah, it's definitely Facebook, and then there's YouTube as well.
Awesome. Well, that's Grissom. You have been wonderful. I thank you again for being on Hanging with the Dreamer, for hanging out with me for a little bit. And thanks for giving me your time. Thank you for sharing everything that you're able to share. And it's my hope that somebody will watch this interview, will be able to learn something and hear a little snippet of something that you shared, or that I've shared for that matter, that will maybe be an answer to a question they have in their mind. Because I know that's what happens for me. And I could be watching somebody, then I'll hear like 3 or 4 words, and those words will stick in the back of my mind. And lo and behold, the thing that's in the back of my mind could be an answer to a concern that I have in my life, or it could be a concern that I have, a problem I have in my life at the time. And it happens. It happens. So I believe it'll happen again. And I want to thank you for putting yourself out there and for sharing your heart and your passion of all things PRS, SE Tremonti's, and music and ancient sins and everything. It's absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much for being on this show. And as your musical journey progresses, I hope to see you back.